Well, yes. In fact, there is in these documents now an accusation from an alleged victim that Donald Trump actually raped her.
We're witnessing something remarkable in the fight for the Epstein files. Bill Clinton just dropped a bombshell that completely dismantles Donald Trump's deflection strategy, and it's driving the former president absolutely wild. Through his spokesperson, Clinton demanded complete transparency from Trump's Department of Justice. He called for the immediate release of every remaining document referencing him, including grand jury materials and photographs. Clinton made it crystal clear. The selective releases we've seen suggest certain individuals are being protected, and he requires no such protection. This statement eliminates Trump's favorite pivot. For weeks, Republicans have circled back to Clinton, hoping to turn this into partisan theater and make Americans forget who actually holds the power to release these files. Trump himself leaned into that strategy, publicly, deliberately, and on camera. Not with evidence, not with law, but with familiarity and sympathy.
I know there are a lot of people that are angry about all of the pictures of other people, but I think it's terrible. Look, I like Bill Clinton. I've always gotten along with Bill Clinton. I've been nice to him. He's been nice to me. We've always gotten along. Respect him. I hate to see photos come out of him, but this is what the Democrats, mostly Democrats, and a couple of bad Republicans are asking for. So they're giving their photos of me, too. Everybody was friendly with this guy. Either friendly or not friendly, but he was around. He was all over Palm Beach and other places. The head of Harvard was his best friend, Larry Summers.
This was the pivot in real time. Turn Clinton into the story so Trump wouldn't have to be. That option is gone. The most prominent Democrat connected to Epstein just demanded full disclosure. If criminal conduct is revealed against anyone, they deserve prosecution. Full stop. The survivors deserve justice. They deserve access to their own stories. The trauma inflicted by Epstein and others in that circle is so severe, many victims still struggle to recall what happened to them. Yet, Trump's DOJ continues to obstruct. This is indefensible. If you appreciate this kind of unfiltered analysis, please hit subscribe. It helps us keep bringing you the truth. What's Trump's argument now? Release the files. After Bill Clinton called his bluff and demanded the full release of every Epstein document referencing him, Donald Trump held what can only be described as a disastrous press conference at Mar-a-Lago. It was ostensibly about unveiling the Navy's new Golden Fleet and the groundbreaking Trump-class battleships, the largest surface combatants since World War II, starting with the USS Defiant. But Trump couldn't resist diving into the Epstein mess. He expressed sympathy for the tremendous backlash against people whose photos were released, saying he felt bad for those who innocently met Epstein years ago, including Bill Clinton. I don't like pictures of Bill Clinton being shown. I don't like pictures of other people being shown, he complained, claiming it ruins reputations of successful people who just happened to be at a party. Then, the classic misdirection. He bragged about throwing Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago decades ago, insisted he'd never gone to the island, and pivoted to attacking Democrats caught in the web. But suddenly, midstream, Trump jumped to announcing Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry as special envoy to Greenland, essential for national security, with Russian and Chinese ships everywhere. He boasted about massive military sales. At that moment, the press conference stopped being about policy or accountability. It became something else, a man reaching for noise when silence would have exposed him.
Like, immediately. I mean, I have sold more planes than any president by far, times probably 20. So every time I go someplace, I sell 100 planes. That includes commercial planes, Boeings, etc., but it also includes fighter jets. And I'm always having to say 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, helicopters, Apache helicopters, many years. India bought them. They want to get them.
I have watched men do this before, under fire, under oath, under pressure. When the facts close in, they don't answer. They change the subject. This is pure chaos masquerading as leadership, dodging accountability on Epstein violations while threatening allies' sovereignty, vanity naming warships, and deflecting with unrelated boasts. The Navy Secretary, a private equity guy with zero naval experience, gushed that adversaries will tremble seeing the Trump class on the horizon. No, Mr. President, we're not done with Epstein. Your DOJ is still obstructing, admitting a few more weeks for over 1 million newly discovered documents. This is an obvious cover-up. If you appreciate this unfiltered breakdown, hit subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments. It helps us keep exposing the truth without corporate spin. The deflection has failed. Release the files. Now let's examine where this story stands. Representative Bro Connors recently outlined the administration's failure to comply with the Epstein Transparency Act, and what he revealed should alarm every American who cares about justice.
We're not as concerned about having the full release. As long as they're complying with the spirit of the law, at least they're going to release something. But then we saw the documents filled with blanket redactions, documents that judges had ordered to be released, they had blanked out. There's no draft indictment there that actually has the names of other men who may be implicated in the abuse. There's not the prosecution's original memo that we wanted to see released. There are none of the files on Epstein's computer. And we do not know then who these other rich and powerful men were who abused these survivors. And we know from the survivors and the survivors' lawyers that that information is in the files. So this is deeply disappointing. They have not complied with the law, and we're going to continue to fight to make sure they do.
Your first reflex in many situations like this is to give them some grace because it's a lot. However, we also know for months and months and months and months and months and months and months, they have resisted releasing. So my question to you on your point about, you don't trust what you've seen so far, and Caitlin's reporting, this is what she does for a living. She understands the documents. Imagine if you did have too much and you didn't have the staff to do it all. Right? You said the spirit of the law. Those witness statements Caitlin talked about. Memos, why didn't you indict Jeffrey Epstein? Or when you did bring charges, why'd you bring this, not that? My point is, if you were going to say we can't do it all right away, don't you think they could have had a conversation with you about what's most important? Or just know they should be pretty good lawyers, know what's most important to get out in public?
John, they could have had a conversation with me and Thomas Massey, but if they didn't feel like they owed us that conversation, they should have at least had a conversation with the survivors or the survivors' lawyers and listened to what they know are in those files. If they had just released the prosecution memo, which was prepared for the Florida trial, an 80-page document, and the draft indictment, we would have a lot more information about who was part of this abuse and how Epstein made his money. If they just released some of the files on the computers, we'd have a lot more information. And that's what Massey and I said, look, they should have done this months ago. We understand it was rushed. We weren't there saying in the morning, okay, just because they're not releasing everything, we're going to go after them. We thought, okay, they're complying with the date. Let's see what they do. But when it came out that we have no new information about the rich and powerful men who abused these young girls and who should be held accountable, we have no information about who these people are who were engaged in the cover-up, that's when we drew the line.
With Bill Clinton having eliminated the deflection strategy entirely, what's left is glaringly obvious. This is an indefensible, illegal cover-up by Trump's Department of Justice. And yet, even after that strategy collapsed, Trump kept reaching for it, repeating the same frame as if saying it often enough might bring it back to life.
Leadership, but Massey's a loser, and he likes it, and that he works with the Democrats. He's just being used by the Democrats, because what this whole thing is with Epstein is a way of trying to deflect from the tremendous success that the Republican Party has. Like, for instance, today we're building the biggest ships in the world, most powerful ships in the world, and they're asking me questions about Jeffrey Epstein. I thought that was finished. I believe they gave over 100,000 pages of documents, and there is tremendous backlash. It's an interesting question, because a lot of people are very angry that pictures are being released of other people that really had nothing to do with Epstein, but they're in a picture with him because he was at a party, and you ruin a reputation of somebody. So a lot of people are very angry that this continues. A lot of Republicans are angry because of the fact that it's just used to deflect against a tremendous success. Look, we have $18 trillion coming into our country. We have, I believe, we're going to have the most successful economy in history. We inherited a mess. Now prices are coming way down. Gasoline is less than $2 in some states. $1.99, $1.97, $1.95 a gallon. $1.95. Think of that. A gallon. Nobody ever thought they'd see that. They don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about Epstein. And the problem is a lot of Democrats are being caught up in the web, like Larry Summers. Larry Summers was the head of Harvard. He's now been forced to resign from every board he's on, and he was thrown off the Harvard board. Now, he was at Epstein's Island a lot. I wasn't. I never went there, by the way. But
this wasn't explanation. It was repetition, deflection recycled after it had already failed. Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, and Kash Patel are actively violating the Epstein Files Transparency Act, passed overwhelmingly by Congress and signed by Trump himself, by refusing full release past the December 19th deadline. They dropped a partial, heavily redacted trove on Friday, then admitted they'd need a few more weeks after discovering over 1 million additional documents, extreme redactions, entire pages blacked out, photos removed from the website without explanation. This isn't protection of victims, it's shielding perpetrators. Representative Jamie Raskin called it exactly what it is, an obvious cover-up to hide things Donald Trump doesn't want public, whether about himself, his circle, or the network he was part of for years. Bipartisan lawmakers like Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna are threatening contempt and even impeachment against Bondi for this blatant defiance of federal law. The survivors are furious, and rightfully so. They spoke out this week, slamming the abnormal and extreme redactions with no explanation, saying the DOJ is failing them again, perpetuating trauma at the expense of justice. Many still struggle to recall the horrors inflicted by Epstein and his enablers, yet Trump's team withholds access to their own stories. Clinton's statement, though overdue, was significant. He demanded everything about him be released immediately. But he shouldn't have remained a public face of the party given his documented ties. That's a serious lapse Democrats must own. We're demanding accountability across the board, no exceptions. Trump controls the executive branch. He has the power to order full release today. He's choosing not to. This violation happens every single day he delays. The survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse network just spoke out, and their words should outrage every American who believes in justice. These brave women, many of whom I've followed closely through this fight, slammed Trump's DOJ for the abnormal and extreme redactions with no explanation in the partial release. They called it a fraction of what was promised, riddled with blackouts that make it impossible to search for their own stories or connect the dots on Epstein's enablers. Worse, some survivors discovered their own identities weren't properly redacted, exposing them all over again in direct violation of the law meant to protect them. One Jane Doe told reporters she was mortified, still waiting for the DOJ to fix it days later. This isn't protection, it's perpetuating trauma at the survivors' expense. The psychological horror they endured is so severe that many still struggle to recall the full details, yet Bondi, Blanche, and Patel withhold access to the very records that could help heal and hold perpetrators accountable. And now, bipartisan fury is boiling over. Representatives Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, the very sponsors of the Transparency Act, are drafting inherent contempt charges against Pam Bondi, threatening daily fines until full release. Even some Republicans are joining the call, while Democrats like Jamie Raskin and Robert Garcia explore every legal option. This fight isn't partisan anymore. It's about accountability across the board. The new Republicans spent weeks banking on turning the Epstein files into a partisan football game. They anticipated liberal outrage over revelations involving Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, or anyone else on the Democratic side, hoping to frame this entire fight as political theater while Americans forgot who actually controls the executive branch and the release process. But Bill Clinton just eliminated that option completely. By demanding full disclosure of everything related to him, he stripped away their favorite deflection. We're not hypocrites here. Democrats are unified in demanding transparency and accountability across the board, no exceptions, regardless of affiliation. That's why it's so infuriating to watch Republicans pivot to desperate misdirection now. When the Clinton card failed, what did Trump do? Hold a chaotic press conference ostensibly about the Navy's future, only to unveil vanity Trump-class battleships like the USS Defiant, part of his so-called Golden Fleet of 20 to 25 ships. He boasted about massive arms sales, hundreds, even thousands of aircraft, while a Navy secretary with zero naval experience gushed that adversaries will tremble at the sight of the Trump class on the horizon. And in the middle of it all, announcing Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry as special envoy to Greenland, claiming it's vital for national security against Russian and Chinese ships. This from the same administration delaying and redacting Epstein files in blatant violation of the Transparency Act. This is classic playbook failure. When one deflection dies, scramble to the next. Greenland sovereignty threats, vanity warships, unrelated boasts, all to distract from the obvious cover-up. Survivors are still waiting for justice. The trauma doesn't fade. The victims have waited long enough. The law is clear. The authority rests in one man's hands. And every day Donald Trump refuses to act, the betrayal deepens. We're closer than ever to breaking this open, not because of political games or partisan point scoring, but because the demand for truth has finally grown louder than the machinery of deflection. Bill Clinton's demand for full release stripped away the last credible excuse. The selective redactions, the missing indictments, the hidden files, they can no longer be waved away as bureaucratic overload. This is a deliberate cover-up executed by an administration that controls every lever needed to comply with the Epstein Transparency Act. Trump's favorite strategy, pivot to Clinton, cry both sides, and hope the public loses interest, has finally definitively failed. It never should have worked in the first place, but Clinton's statement ended it for good. There is no bipartisan obstruction here. There is only one side choosing day after day to violate federal law and shield powerful men from scrutiny. The survivors deserve justice. They deserve to see their full stories in the light without black bars hiding the names of those who harmed them. They deserve leaders who prioritize their healing over political protection or personal embarrassment. We will keep covering this story objectively, calling out the lies as they emerge, and amplifying the voices of those who have been silenced for far too long. The circle of protection is cracking. The truth is coming. Keep pushing for accountability. Don't let them silence the demand for truth. Speak up, share the facts, stay engaged, because this fight isn't over until every document is released and every survivor is heard. Thank you for standing with the victims and with transparency. If you value independent analysis that is not shaped by power, influence, or partisan convenience, subscribing helps sustain this work. Leave a comment with your perspective. Do not let the demand for transparency be exhausted into silence. Truth does not need spectacle. It only needs to be released. Thank you for watching. We'll return to this story